Nove Miesto, May 1942. One day, a notice was delivered to Aunt Hedda and Uncle Ludwig's house. Hana and George Brady were ordered to report to a deportation center at Trebic, 50 kilometers away from Nove Miesto, on May 14, 1942. This was what Uncle Ludwig had feared. He called Hana and George into his study and read them the letter. Then he tried to put the bad news in the best possible light. "You're going on a trip," he told them. "Together. You'll be going to a place where there are lots of other Jews, lots of other children to play with. Maybe there you won't have to wear the star." George and Hana said very little. They were both unhappy about being uprooted again and leaving their aunt and uncle. Hana was scared. When Boschka came to help them prepare for this strange trip, Hana peppered her with questions. "Where are our parents? When will we see them again? Where will we end up? What can we take with us?" Boschka didn't have any answers. The housekeeper told Hana that she too would be leaving Nove Miesto to stay with a brother who lived on a farm. Hana took out the large brown suitcase with the polka dot paper lining from under her bed. She packed a sleeping bag that she hoped would give her the smell of home, no matter how far away they were sent. So did George. There was salami and sugar to tuck in amongst the clothes, as well as a few keepsakes. Uncle Ludwig was heartbroken about sending his young niece and nephew away. He asked a driver to take them to the deportation center. Uncle Ludwig just couldn't face it himself. He and his wife did their best to hide their tears as they said goodbye to Hana and George. They promised to wait for their return to Nove Miesto after the war was over. When the driver rang his bells and the horses pulled away from the house, no one spoke a word. A few hours later, the driver dropped Hana and George off in front of a huge warehouse. They joined the lineup near the entrance. When they reached the registration desk, they gave their names to a frowning soldier. He waved them into the dark, airless building. The floor inside the building was covered with mats. Hana and George found 2 mats together in a corner and sat down. When they looked around, they realized there were hardly any other children, but there were hundreds of Jewish men and women, waiting to be sent to a place called Theresienstadt. They were all being deported. For 4 days and 4 nights, Hana and George stayed in the warehouse, eating the food from their suitcases, sleeping on the mats. Though some of the adults tried to be kind to the children, Hana and George were not in a mood for company. They had each other, and they passed the time reading, talking, napping, and thinking of home. It was in this warehouse, on May 16, 1942, with a few candies and a stub of a candle, that Hana Brady celebrated her 11th birthday. Tokyo, June 2000. The exhibition, The Holocaust Seen Through Children's Eyes, drew more visitors, adults and children alike, than Fumiko had dreamed possible. The story of the Holocaust was new to many of the people who came to the museum. As Fumiko had hoped, its tragedy was made real for them by the objects she had gathered and the story they told. Though they were interested in the shoe, the can of Zyklon B gas, and the little sweater, it was the suitcase that became a magnet. Children and their parents constantly gathered around it and examined the writing. Hana Brady, May 16, 1931. Waisenkind. Orphan. They read the poems written by the members of Small Wings, and they admired the drawings Hana had made in Theresienstadt. "Do you know any more about her?" they asked. "What happened to her? What did she look like?" Fumiko decided to redouble her efforts to find a picture of Hana. Somewhere, someone had to be able to help them. Fumiko wrote back to the Terezin Ghetto Museum. No, came the answer. We already told you. We know nothing about a girl named Hana Brady. Fumiko just couldn't accept this. She decided to go to Terezin herself.